It's 8 p.m. here in Sydney, and we can see just behind me members of the Jewish community holding a vigil in commemoration of those who lost their lives in last night's attack. 15 people died. We have been seeing people laying floral tributes behind me, as well as members of the Jewish community addressing the public. They've been singing traditional Jewish songs, lighting a menorah and clapping along. At one point there was over 1,000 or so people here. At 6:47 p.m, which was exactly 24 hours after the attack began, people sang the Australian anthem. Earlier, we heard from Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, who said his government will do whatever was necessary to stamp out anti-Semitism following what he called an evil terror attack. Mr Albanese has confirmed immediate action will be taken on gun laws. That includes renegotiating the National Firearms Agreement, which was established after the 1996 Port Arthur tragedy. Phil Mercer has the details.
Amid the horror and panic at Bondi Beach, there was heroism. A man here in a white shirt hiding behind a car picks his moment to challenge one of the attackers, wresting his firearm from him. Ahmed Al-Ahmed was injured, and his courage almost certainly saved lives.
But still he's in the hospital and we don't know exactly what's going inside. But they said the doctor is very okay. And next 2 hours, they let us to go in and see Ahmed because he's still inside and he do the operation. But we hope he will be fine. He's a hero, 100% he's a hero, because what we see on the social media, he's 100% hero.
The Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has visited the scene of his country's worst mass shooting in almost 30 years. He called it an evil targeted attack on the Jewish community and said it was beyond anyone's worst nightmares.
What we saw yesterday was an act of pure evil, an act of terror, an act of anti-Semitism, an attack on the first day of Hanukkah targeted at the Jewish community. A dark day in Australia's history on what should have been a day of light.
Police say 2 gunmen, a father and son, opened fire on people attending a Jewish festival. The older man was shot dead by the police. His son is critically ill in hospital. The attack here at Australia's most famous beach will leave a lasting trauma on the community. Many witnesses who are on this famous arc of sand have told us how the gunfire seemed to go on for an eternity. And many of those who were here at the time have returned to lay flowers and remember the dead.
I'm devastated. It's just unbelievable. You just don't think that would happen here in this community. Still, I don't believe it's happened. I feel like it's a dream or something because it doesn't feel real.
Gun crime in Australia is rare, following the introduction of sweeping firearms laws after a mass shooting in Tasmania in 1996. The government says it's now considering more strict gun controls. Australia's response to anti-Semitism will also face even greater scrutiny. Critics believe the government's strategy, including the appointment of a special envoy, has failed. Anthony Albanese is insisting the surge in anti-Jewish vandalism and violence is being taken seriously. Phil Mercer, BBC News at Bondi Beach.
Now we understand that behind me they are lighting candles. The mood here was very, very sombre. Now it is becoming increasingly melodic almost, people singing. I'm joined now by our Australia correspondent Phil Mercer. Thank you. We just heard your package there. What do you make of the way it's been down here today in Bondi?
I think there's been a steady drumbeat of people seeking solemn and solace down here. We've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of people coming down, many laying flowers. And one thing that really struck me was the silence that you could enjoy with all these people in quiet contemplation, and you can hear the waves of the Pacific Ocean. So that just gives you an illustration of the mood of the day. And as you say, this feels more uplifted now as the sun is setting. People are perhaps trying to reclaim some of the spirit of this place that was so badly damaged more than 24 hours ago.
Yes, we heard earlier today about the gunman, a father and son duo. There was information as well given out in the presser earlier. What more do we know?
It's almost unbelievable, isn't it, that a father and a son could hatch a plot with such detailed planning. We understand that the father and the son were holding out in a rented house in a suburb in Sydney in preparation for this attack with 6 legally held firearms. We know that they were 50 years of age. The older man was shot dead not too far from here by the police. His 24-year-old son, you might have seen pictures of him on the bridge near here holding a very powerful weapon in his hand. He was critically injured and he's in hospital. We know that the father arrived in Australia on a student visa in the late 1990s. We don't know too much more, but we do know that his son was investigated by the authorities in 2019 and was deemed not to be a threat at that time. So I would imagine all of these details will be revisited as Australia slowly gets to grip with the enormity of what happened here.
And just briefly before I let you go, we heard earlier today as well from the Prime Minister regarding reform to gun control laws. Can you give us some background on that?
Gun control has served Australia pretty well. Gun crime, certainly of this nature, is extremely rare in this country. In 1996, 35 people were killed by a lone gunman in Tasmania, and there followed very strict gun reform. And we get the sense, listening to the Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, that he has the appetite, he has the ambition for more gun reform. So that could be a legacy of the awful events that unfolded here just over a day ago.
Phil Mercer, thank you for joining me. And as you can hear, it really is intensifying here. Earlier, there are probably close to 1,000 people here. Earlier, there were more as they came home from work. But it does seem that those who are still here, a very passionate community, the Jewish voice here in Australia is very angry about what's going on. They have senior members of the Jewish community have blamed the Prime Minister, say that the government was inactive when it came to taking on some of the recommendations from a report earlier this year into how to combat anti-Semitism. But in general here in Bondi there is feelings of shock, there are feelings of devastation. Earlier I spoke with somebody who was taking their dog for a walk, a man by the name of James Adam, and he told me what it was like here yesterday evening.
So I was just enjoying the evening like I do, walking home through the pavilion here, up through here. And I just decided to give the dog just a little bit of extra time, and then I've heard what sounded like firecrackers. After about 2 or 3, I realised that it wasn't firecrackers, and everyone just started running. It was absolute pandemonium. The thing is that the echoes, you couldn't tell where the shots were coming from. They were just one after the other, and people were just running for their lives. We actually thought that there were multiple shooters moving up through this area, so I just headed to Hall Street, telling people to get into restaurants. And
how terrifying that must have been, especially as we were discussing that there's almost like a bowl shape here, so you wouldn't know where the sounds were coming from. Multiple shooters potentially going through. What was going through your mind and your head and your heart during that time?
I had my wife actually on the phone telling me that I needed to come home. I couldn't get home. I live across the road. So I had to just move away from the shots, just get as far away as possible from the shots as I could, and just let everyone know on my way to get inside and take cover.
You were saying as well your dad came here as a refugee, your granddad, came here as a refugee after the Second World War. How does it make you feel seeing your country like this?
Yeah, so look, I think the Bondi community are just in a state of shock. I've been out and about today just trying to do what I normally do, and we've been consoling each other, talking about it, just trying to process what happened. This sort of stuff doesn't happen here. As I said, my granddad's an immigrant and proud to be Australian, and we live harmoniously here. I just got back from Europe last week, and I was so happy to be back home, and to have this happen is just devastating. This is the best place to live on earth. We're so lucky down here, and I think that the community is going to recover, and I just hope that it just brings all of Australians together, no matter where they come from. And we don't need to worry about what happens overseas. Australia is somewhere that's the best place to live, and it's shook. Everyone's shook.
As I say, a lot of sadness there. We're also hearing as well from the Chief Executive of the Australian Jewish Association, Robert Gregory, who talked about that level of anger that I mentioned in the Jewish community here.
Obviously, there's a lot of grief, a lot of shock as the news is breaking, as people are finding out that people they know have been killed. And I know several of the people personally myself, so it's a great tragedy. But I think the bigger feeling is the anger that the government failed to protect the Jewish community, that they had so many warnings about escalating anti-Semitism, that they didn't listen, and that now we've seen this terrible result at Sydney's famous Bondi Beach.
It's Robert Gregory from the Australian Jewish Association, and as you can hear people a round of applause as they have been clapping, they have been singing, they have been chanting and cheering. There is certainly a very strong feeling here tonight in Bondi. Now, as you can hear probably as well, they have broken into another song. Now, the Australian anthem, in fact. And as part of all of this as well, somebody that has been hailed a hero, the Bondi hero, in fact, is a fruit seller, a 43-year-old fruit seller from a different part of Sydney who managed to take action during the event and in fact take away the gun from one of the gunmen and hold it towards him without shooting. Now he has been injured, he's received multiple surgery, he's been hospitalised, but now there's been a fundraiser and a US billionaire has donated around $100,000 towards that fundraiser. Let's take a look at some of that footage.
Oh!
So Mr. Ahmed appears here wearing a white shirt, as you can see, after hiding between parked cars. He then approaches the armed man from behind, wrestles the weapon away from him, and the gunman is forced to the ground and then staggers away. You can see he points the gun at the shooter, but there's nothing to suggest that he opens fire, and it all happens just a few metres away from the bridge where the other suspected gunman was continuing to fire. Ahmed in the white shirt eventually lays down the gun and takes shelter behind a tree, and he's been widely praised by lawmakers, by those on social media. We heard, for example, from the New South Wales Premier Chris Mims saying he's never seen scenes like this in his life, and that Mr. Ahmed likely averted the loss of many, many lives. That is what we have that's the very latest we have from you here, Geeta.
And Katie, obviously this is a lot of questions still unfolding, for example, for the government on what was known about the attackers. But what are you expecting to see there on the ground in the next few hours?
Well, it does seem that the commemorations now have just finished. People are starting to leave, but we are expecting to continue to hear updates from both the government as well as the police. It is getting later here. It's after 8 o'clock at night. We saw earlier this afternoon raids on this house, this rental house that Phil mentioned. So we may well get more information there. We also understand that the gunman that is alive in critical condition, the son, who is 24 years old, we understand that he may face charges when his health improves, and that may also, when he is interrogated, that may also lead to new information. A lot of questions about how, when there was these accusations made in 2019, an investigation was opened into this now 24-year-old son. Why the authorities didn't spot this? Why didn't they know that this was going on? And also a lot of questions and a lot of criticism regarding the Albanese government response when it comes to anti-Semitism in this country. So certainly a lot of inquiries going forward looking into those particular issues.
Katie Silva will be back with you in the coming hours.